So it's big news for the Mercuries. I'd like to be able to say that it was that one of them or both of them were done. It's not that. Far from it. I've actually taken the red one right back to the start. Just completely, all that work I've done with the smoothing out the edges of the hole that was left by the missing engine and creating that kind of elongated V-shaped rib that runs down the centre of the front. I've just completely razed that to the ground. I've sanded all that away and gone beyond that, right to the foundations of the repair, so to speak. The other one, though, I was just going to go straight on and do the same with that. But I'll give it a chance doing it this way by sanding down the repair, because it does, more than the red one, it does look like it's slowly getting there. I don't really know what it was about the red one that suddenly maybe just decided to tear it all down and start again. I think partly it was because I've got a better idea of how this can be done and how this could have been done right at the start. So yeah, you can see it's just scorched earth. There's nothing left. Well, apart from the original fill of the hole, there's nothing really left there. But I have got a better idea of how this can be done, and I'll be putting that into practice in the next video, and we'll see how that unfolds. I was going to do the same with this one too, but it does just seem like it might still get there this way, so they can now divert away from each other onto separate methods. And the Renault 5 GT is looking a bit weird. I painted the interior black. I masked the seats off just to leave them red. The bumper's in silver, pending making it the same red as the body. The Nova's all weirdly masked up at the moment. I'm trying to keep the wheels, because I've basically done the wheels already. I'm just trying to keep those away from getting any paint on. I'm just doing the bottom half in like a metallic grey that I mixed up out of standard Tamiya kind of flat grey, and just put a little bit of silver and a little bit of black in there to make a kind of metallic charcoal. The next installment is going to be quite Nova heavy, so this is, like I said, this is just the base plate being the lower half being done in like a metallic grey, but there'll be and then yeah, what's going on here? So there'll be more about that in the next installment. The Twingo, I'm just airbrushing that now with the a clear red fading into like a clear orange. So just doing the red bits on the front, and then I can start attacking it with the orange, because the orange can go onto the red and it won't really affect it, whereas that's not really true the other way around. So it's important to get whenever you're doing anything like this, trying to fade one colour into another, it's very important to do the darker of the two, or the more prevalent colour first. So this should, I'm hoping, the roof is going to be primarily orange. I'm hoping that'll be a nice colour to highlight that Renault diamond that I etched into the roof last time. It's important when you're doing these fades, it's quite important as well not to worry too much when it looks like this in the early stages, because this doesn't look like it's going to turn out even remotely well. I was just trying to get a fairly dry coat on at first, but it ended up just spattering a little bit and putting a little bit too much on in one or two places. And if you do that, just stop. That's all you got to do. Just stop. Do not try and style it out by putting a load more paint on or something like that. It's alright just having this like bit of a splatter on there for a bit. Let the splatter dry and then go back to it again, and that's when you can style it out, once it's dry and you're not just going to be putting a load more paint onto like a heavily concentrated bit of still wet paint. See, this was later on, once it dried a little bit, and I could just go and put my wet coat on pretty much in the normal way, and it wasn't really an issue at all. And right at the start, it did look like I say, with that bit of an excess went onto a bit of it, and it did look like that could be a recipe for disaster, and indeed it would have been if I'd have just carried on. So you can see that Renault diamond is still there. I don't know if this paint is absolutely perfect at this stage. It looks nice, it's a nice colour, and the fade effect's quite nice, but I think it might need a bit of revisiting in terms of the actual finish itself. But the best thing to do at the moment is probably just to let it settle a little bit, because these things do need to settle. And this is the base plate, finally polished for the Matchbox Fantasy Cast, the Tanzara as it's called. I'm a little bit more convinced now. I think the colour is right for it, but there's still quite a bit of work left to do on this. I might even have to put another coat of paint on it, I'm not quite sure. So let's get another two going. These two haven't really been seen since I first took them apart. I've done a little bit of work to them off camera. I'm just getting the bodies prepped up. Might as well do them both side by side, and just one brush stroke does two cars. Obviously you can only really do this for certain parts of it. Like, you can do both the roofs together and the fronts and the backs, and that's about it really. Once you start trying to come up with some daft way of doing both the sides at the same time, you probably would have been quicker just to do each side separately. So I still haven't figured out exactly what I'm going to do with these in terms of the colour. For now, I'm just making it so that the bodies are prepped to be able to put some colour on them. I've already done something with the wheels though. I've already painted, but on both of them the same, with that same Tamiya gold, and then gone over it with the smoke grey, just to, it sort of gives it a bit of a, give it like an antique gold effect or a distressed gold effect or something. I don't even know if I'm going to be keeping that colour on the wheels. I might want to do something that's a little bit more high impact, perhaps. I don't know, but I'm going to get some tyres made, because usually when you make the tyres out of the heat shrink tube like this, you can usually take them off again. They're like fully removable, and it's a bit of a pointless feature, because I don't know why you'd want to not have them on there once you've got them. But so it's the time-honoured tradition of getting your width of heat shrink tube, and you make it so it's just slightly less. I know it's quite hard to measure less than a millimetre, but slightly less than a millimetre over the edge, and that'll give you your tyre wall. I mean, you could make it slightly more than a millimetre if you wanted to give it a thicker, like a higher profile tyre. The only trouble with that is it becomes harder to control and harder to keep it all centralised and looking uniform all the way around if you try and get a thicker kind of tyre wall using the heat shrink method. It's not really that advisable, because you'll probably find it quite frustrating. So this is where we are. They're in bare metal, and they've had the base plates blacked to get over the issue of the fact that the chrome's all decomposed on it. You'll notice the Nova's changed quite a lot since that last picture, but we'll go into that next time. Thanks for watching.